For today's review, we are looking at the final figure in the Superman Ghosts of Krypton Page Puncher wave. And it is none other than Brainiac himself. And a very interesting looking Brainiac, because this is not how you picture the character to look, right? Because usually when we think of Brainiac, we think of an alien with a green face, right? That wears a lot of high-tech suit armor. This is a different kind of Brainiac, so yeah. Alright, what is included with this Brainiac? Well, of course, you get the profile card that doesn't really tell you anything about this version of Brainiac. And you get, of course, the final issue of this 4-part comic series, which is really cool because in this one, this is the conclusion. They defeat Brainiac. And of course, they learn what Brainiac's plan was and how they got lured into the Phantom Zone. And you can see this crazy amalgamation of a Brainiac and a General Zod fused together. And it would have been cool if this was the figure. If there was a 5th figure in this wave, like, that would have been such a cool fusion form for them to do. But, you know, too bad. And also, Superman and Val-Zod work together to defeat this horde of Brainiac drones. And that's kind of something that I do want to talk about, is the fact that this figure looks more like the drone than actually a Brainiac. So, yeah. So they defeat him. The real General Zod shows up and pretty much tells them that we got it covered, and then sends them home. And now both Superman and Val-Zod are back home to their respective homeworlds, right? So, happy ending for both of them, except for Brainiac, because he doesn't get a happy ending. So, his plans are foiled once again. Alrighty. So, what does this version of Brainiac include as accessories? Well, let's start with the first one that's obvious. So he has this arm limb thing. This is the only one that has like an articulation point on it, besides the regular arms, of course, on the figure. And they basically just port onto the backside of the figure, which is like these little portholes on his backpack, whatever you want to call it. And there's no accessories that he holds. It's just all, you know, parts that plug into his back. So, I don't know if you want to consider these accessories. Some people will say that, well, if it's part of the figure, it's not really accessories. They're just, you know, part of him. So, these are all the pieces. And, of course, the one that I just showed that is already on the figure, because that piece is a little bit hard to remove. Once you plug it in, it has a little bit of a gib. So, I don't want to take it off. And pretty much some of them, when you plug them in, they do make click noises, and you will hear that because I'm going to show an example of how you plug these in. And there is no order. Let me just emphasize that. You can plug these extra limb compartments anywhere you want on the figure on the backside. So if you don't want it on the shoulder, or, well, not really the shoulder, but like, you know, this top part right here, you can move that, I think, to some other part of the back. So there is no order. So let's start with this first piece. You have this weird looking hand accessory. It's like a tinier version of that hand. And I usually just have it here because I don't really know what the heck this is, why he has this, or what the heck it's for, as I want to continue my sentence. And basically you just plug this in. And it goes right in there, and you can hear that click noise. So there's that. And then as for his tentacle pieces, these ones, I like to plug them on the back side, on the bottom, because that's where it just feels like they belong. So let's do that. And easy. And then, of course, the final piece, I prefer mine on the shoulder, and it just goes in like that. And there you have a very weird-looking Brainiac. And as I said a few minutes ago, this looks more like the drone. This doesn't look like Brainiac, because Brainiac has a different appearance in this comic. He actually has his green face. Let me pull up the issue. I did show it in the last one. let me show an example right here. Hopefully you guys can see this because there is a light reflecting glare. But as you can see, that's what he looks like. And that's kind of what the platinum version of his figure looks like too, because the platinum version of this Brainiac is basically supposed to be that artwork, and they painted the same body mold in this more black color mixed in with some purple and white parts, I think, if I remember correctly. I don't have the platinum version, as you can tell. If I did, it would be in this video too. So, yeah. But this is more of like a drone. So, that's what this feels like to me. But nevertheless, even if it's supposed to be Brainiac not showing his face, I mean, that's still a pretty cool looking Brainiac, right? It's really weird. Very, how do you call it? It reminds me of a figure that I have from the Warhammer line. If I remember correctly, the name was called Gene Stealer. So if you ever bought the Mcfarlane Gene Stealer, this figure kind of reminds me a little bit of that one, because the way that they proportioned the arms, the way they did the joints, especially the arm joints right here, these are definitely from the Gene Stealer, I think. They look like they're from that figure. And also the way he, what do you call it, bends forward like this, very similar to the way they sculpted the Gene Stealer figure as well. So, yeah, there's like some influences from that design, which I really like. Because the Gene Stealer figure is probably still one of my favorite Mcfarlane Warhammer figures they've ever made. So, yeah. Okay, as for his design and sculpt and aesthetics, this figure has a lot of details going on, and I hope that my camera can pick up on those details. There is a lot of sculpting on this figure that is just very much present. But again, because of the type of paint that they chose to use, some of it is buried in there. And if you are a customizer, you could probably paint some areas a little bit different to make it pop. So, for example, since this figure is primarily gray, you could use a little bit of metallics in some of these places. Now, you can also see that they also tried to put a wash in some of the areas to make it look like he's like rusted. This is not his first time in this suit of armor. He's been, you know, out there in the universe, right? And I like that, but it could probably look better if you use other sorts of styles of paint to make certain pieces look more rusted, so it gives it more of that realism. But again, this is only something you would do if you actually like customizing action figures. If you're not someone who wants to customize your action figures, this is still pretty good by itself. But to me, because I do have metallic markers, I might use this for a custom. Maybe. I haven't thought about it, but there is an idea for that. So, okay. As for the articulation on this guy, it's very different. So, his arms right here, they can move all the way back like this, because they are on a ball joint. And there is a joint movement right there, as you can see. It moves, and then the double jointed works both ways, so that's kind of what it looks like. As for the hands, this is the only one that moves. So if you move this part, there is swivel, there is an articulation right there, same thing, double jointed with this arm, right? The same swivel, same everything. Now, this part right here kind of tricked me, because I thought there would be movement with this weapon thing here, because if you look closely, that looks like a ball joint, right? It is a ball joint, but I don't know if it moves or not, because on my copy, it's like so tight in there that it doesn't seem to move. If it actually moves, do let me know in the comments, because I don't want to break anything on this figure. So, but if it doesn't move, then that is really smart of them to kind of like blend it in with the weapon. Because, yeah, that's something I just wanted to point out. Because I don't think it moves. It doesn't look like it wants to. From what I gathered when I was using this figure for the thumbnail photos. So, unfortunately, I think that part of the arms, this part right here, doesn't move. As for these upper parts, right, these have movement because they just rotate around. It is unfortunate right here that this piece up here is not an articulation point. It is sculpted in there, but it looks like it could move. It does not move. The only movement is down here with the ball peg. And then for these back parts right here, these just move, like that. There's really nothing there. As for his head, he just looks side to side. He can't really look down. He kind of can look up, but not exactly because he's kind of, hunched forward. And he does have rotation, right? Really good. He does ab crunch forward, kind of, if you need him to. He does kick his legs outward. Really good. He does have the ability to do the splits. And last but not least, he does have double jointed down here. If they work, they're still really tight, actually. Oh, there we go. There you go. So they do that. And of course, they're like on a ratchet joint from what I can tell, which is actually really cool. There's like a ratchet sound to it. And, of course, he does have your feet articulation and no toe articulation, unfortunately. So, yeah. Really cool figure. Really interesting articulation. Not this, the usual kind that you see on most Mcfarlane figures. So, but I like it. I like the sculpt being different because, again, I think I've said this in my Superman video, if I remember correctly, that this entire wave is just a wave that I was really excited for because everything just felt different. It felt like something new. It wasn't something reused, right? As I emphasized in my Batman Fusion review, there's certain body bucks that they've been reusing a whole lot, and it's not like it's a bad thing, but, sometimes it's nice to see something new. Even though this wave did come out way before that Batman Superman Fusion figure, it felt like it's been, quite some time since we've seen actual new sculpts. So, yeah. All right, for comparisons, since I said that this figure can work as a drone because it really does look like these drones, let me just show an image of what those drones look like really quickly. So, let's see. Right here, as you can see, they kind of look like the drones, right? The figure looks exactly like that, not entirely, but it works as a drone. That's what it is. And if you want to, not saying you have to, but if you want to buy a couple of them to army build for a Brainiac that we've gotten before, we even done a review on this Brainiac. Well, here you have the Injustice 2 Brainiac. And if you want this one to be like a drone for him, you can. Now, I know in Injustice 2, the drones don't look exactly like this. They're not even the same. But, hey, if you want to army build a Brainiac drones for your Brainiac, well, this is a good option right here because it really does work as a drone. But if you really just want to have two different Brainiacs on your shelf, well, you can also do it like this too. And you can tell that there is quite a big difference between the two of them because at least with the Injustice 2, it does feel like more of not a traditional Brainiac, but more of what you think of Brainiac when you picture the character. He has his green face, he's wearing a suit of armor, he's very humanoid looking, not like this right here where it's very, how would I describe it? More like an alien creature style, xenomorph, but if it was like fused with cybernetics. So, yeah. Okay. And of course, what does he look like next to someone that's not Brainiac? Well, you got the Batman Superman fusion. there's that. And finally, let's put them all together as a wave. So, of course, we got to start off with the Superman. Hopefully he doesn't fall. He's wearing the armor. Kind of just move these guys out of the way, or move the Brainiac out of the way, I mean, so I can put these guys front and center. And do not fall, please. Do not. Let's see if we can fit them in the frame. Let's kind of move the arm upward. And there you go. So, oh, excuse me. So, yeah, that's how they all look together. And I apologize if they don't really fit in frame, because as you can see, two of them are wearing heavy looking armor that is wide and takes up room on the table. But that is basically all four of these figures together in this wave. And this is probably my favorite wave. I'm not going to lie, because out of all these Page Puncher waves, I love fighting the Frozen. That was a really cool looking wave. But I think this one just really hammers that that oddball design even more, because one of the things I love about the beginning of DC Multiverse under Mcfarlane was the fact that he used a lot of those character designs that never really got in figures, right? Like the Batmans of the Dark Multiverse, all those crazy death metal designs, right? Like, this really does remind me a little bit of that death metal design, but in a more sci-fi sort of way. And, you know, to be able to finally talk about my opinion on these figures after like months since these figures came out, I'm just happy to revisit these figures and look at all four of them in separate videos. And yeah, and if you haven't picked up this wave at all, well, as I've said in previous videos, you don't have to pick up all these figures. You know, if you really... Maybe I didn't say this in the last couple videos, but I'll say it here. If you just want the Superman by itself, then you get the Superman. If you want the Platinum version of Val-Zod, well, as I said, good luck tracking one down, because it is not an easy one to find. But if you're okay with just the regular version of him too, it's not a bad figure. Just, if you saw my review on Val-Zod, then you know what my opinion is in which one to pick up in terms of value. And if you are a fan of Brainiac, well, this version of Brainiac is not a bad version. It is a really interesting looking version. And if you want to army build as one of the options that I suggested, if you're very into building up a Brainiac shelf with all his drones, this is a really good one to use for that. So, yeah. And last but not least, of course, as I've said, even in the first video, the comics. All four of these comic books right here. All of them. So we've got Superman, you know, General Zod, Val-Zod, and of course the Brainiac. I love that all of them are continuations from the previous, you know, a mini 4-issue series. It is just perfect. Like, this is how these Page Puncher waves should be going forward. And I hope that whenever we do get another one of these sort of original story Page Puncher sort of theme, it is going to continue this format. So, yeah. But with that said, if you found this video informative and you like the way I do my reviews, do give this video a like. If you want to subscribe to my channel to see other content that I do, other figure reviews for other lines or DC Multiverse, or my Transformers Force to Fight gameplay stuff, you can do that as well. You don't have to. In the end of the day, I make these videos for fun. And with that said, take care, and I will see you in the next video.